Welcome to my YouTube channels. If you're new, welcome you also. Please help by click like, subscribe, share, and the bell so that you will get my latest notification. And for those who return, I appreciate you as always. Thank you so much for being such patrons, for your support. Today, I promise that I will make this recipe a fun and interesting way to cook it with vibrant videos that I'm demonstrating every step of the way. Therefore, I like to bring you into my kitchen so that we can start cooking.
Take my mind away. Pray for the world in hope.
For today's recipe, so here we go, the bitter melons. For those who are not familiar with bitter melons, this is how bitter melon looks like. And it doesn't look like melons. It does look more like cucumbers or squash or even zucchinis. But however, the name said it all. It is quite bitter. But of course, the rinds of the bitter melon is not smooth as cucumbers nor zucchini. It's a little distorted. Bitter melon, also known as bitter gourd, and it is a good source of vitamin A, C, minerals, potassium, calcium, irons, with fibers and being low in calories and carbohydrates. Really is not bad for this type of vegetables to attain all these good source of minerals. I would suggest that we will try it out, correct? This cuisine here is not one of my grandchildren's favorites. The mom and the dad will try it out. However, I only gonna make just 2 of these melons because I'm gonna need the cavities of these melons. Therefore, I have divided these melons into 3 pieces and cut both ends and then remove the seeds of the melons because we won't be using it in this cooking. After the seeds are removed, we'll go ahead and wash it and set it aside, and then I'll be doing the garlic and the gingers. The quickest way to remove the rind from the garlic is to use the cleaver and smash it down and then remove the rind gently. As for the ginger, the quickest way to peel the rind is to use the tip of the spoon and rub it back and forth until the rind is completely removed. We will leave the garlic as whole, but the ginger we will slice it in thinner pieces. In between, I went ahead and boiled 2 pots of waters. I'm using 8 cups of waters on each pot. 1 pot is for the soup and the other one is for blanching the pork ribs. I also dice up the scallions into sizes, one for the soups and the meats. I also measure up the ingredients into 2 portions, one for the soup and the others for the chicken. The next things I'm doing is to cut up the chickens. I'm using the thigh meats of the chickens. The thigh meats are better for this cooking. For convenience, I could have got ground chicken. However, I'm using the thigh meat today, and I'll be chopping and mincing it until it's good for the stuffing. I'm not using the glove because it's so inconvenient, especially when I'm mincing the meat. I'm afraid that I will cut it up and will be in the meat. I always be extra clean after using or touching any kind of meat with good soap, brush, and sometimes I use bleach to bleach out between my nails and fingers. The key to delicious dumplings or fillings is fine mincing mixed with ingredients necessary to make a delicious bitter watermelon soup. To achieve these perfections, it requires a good amount of mincing. So as we speak, I can use the meat blender. It could have gone quicker and easier, but again, I enjoy doing all this work. The reason I'm using the chicken thigh because I love the textures of the chicken thigh, and it's relatively fine. The texture is fine, and the filling will be just great because I reduce all the fat within the chicken thigh, so therefore we're not worried about excessively with the animal fat. And here I have been chopping and mincing for the last 10 minutes. Finally, I added the fresh ingredients, the scallions, gingers, and the garlics, and then followed by the other ingredients. Go ahead and combine them now and continue with mincing and chopping until it's good to add our noodles. I'm making sure that my noodles is ready by have it soaked ahead of time. This kind of noodles will help tender and moisturize the fillings The cellophane noodles are made out of cassava plants. So I went to do a little research on Google AI research. And here's what I found. In dietary fibers, it had 50%. It had a little sugar in it because I know it had some sweetness in it. And then it had calcium, magnesium, vitamin B6, vitamin C. It had vitamin C and vitamin E and vitamin K. And there we go, report on the cassava plants. This noodle has very special name. Some call it cellophane noodle, glass noodle, clear noodles, cassava noodles. It's all good to me. And this cellophane noodle is very common in Southeast Asia, in Asia in general, in Chinese, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laos, Burma, I believe. I saw it in Philippines and also in Malaysians when I visit some family and friends. They all have this type of noodles, cooking, serving in their diet. In Tagalog, they call it pancit. In Thai, they call it pat bun sen. In Cambodian, they call it chami su. So therefore, these are all stir-fried from the cassava noodles. All right, let's get back to my work. As you see is that the meat is done, well blended, well minced together. And yes, we're doing such a good job and doing the stuffing. Once the stuffing is done, there is the next things to do. Today we are not just using the stuffing, which is made out of chicken meats and the ingredients. I also going to add it the pork ribs to get a better flavors for this soup. And I see that the water is boiling really good, so it's a perfect time to blanch the pork ribs. Right now, I'll blanch about 10 minutes, stir occasionally to make sure that the ribs is blanching evenly. Once the blanching completed, I will go ahead and drain it on the sieve into the sink. As you can see that the impurities and the blood are being drained out. Then wash the rib a few times and rinse completely. And some individual ask me, why do I blanch the meat? Would that be depleting of the nutrients from the meat? It will be just a little bit because there's still a lot of nutrients and flavors within the bones and the meat itself. And I'm so used to blanching the meat in all, if it's not most of my cooking, but majorities of my meat are being blanched before it's being cooked. And there we go. The other pot of water is boiling. This will be our soup base water. Just then I went ahead and add our fresh ingredients that we had earlier. That would be the gingers and the garlic. And then we'll go ahead and add our pork ribs in. It will take about an hour before I will add our bitter melons in the soup. And because it will take about an hour to cook the melons also, the few pieces of ginger will help tenderize the meat quicker. Also will give that nice and amazing aroma. And not to mention, they are cracked fresh garlic. And I'm telling you, it will be more than enough ingredients in here. And of course, to keep the heat trapped in the pot, I will go ahead and keep it covered for the time being. I really need to upgrade my soup's color. Therefore, I will need to caramel some sugars. Once it's done, I will pour into the pot. This is my ancient way to coloring my food. To loosen up the caramels, I went ahead and add some liquid before I pour it into the pot. And now you see the transformation, the translucent colors of brownish, goldenish colors in front of your eyes. Doesn't this looking more palatable than ever? All right, then we are not quite done. I will go ahead and keep it covering and boiling until it's time for me to add these other ingredients, which are the stuffed bitter melons. Right here, as soon as I'm adding the bitter melons into the soup, I would leave it alone without stirring harsh. The basic rule is simple. I do not want the extra meat from the melons to fall off until it's really got chance to harden while cooking. It is a wise and common sense in cooking this oriental food is that there's certain things that we stir like crazy and there are things that we cannot even touch or stir at all. The rules of the thumb is to make sure that our cookings are coming out in perfect shape and forms and deliciously presentable to the eyes also. In order to let the Sleeping Beauty cooking undisturbed, I am go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. In this format will minimize our stirring it and also will allow the soups to infuse with all these ingredients that we already added in. After about 30 minutes of boiling, I revisit, and to create a translucent look on our soup, I will go ahead and remove all these impurities and all the bubbles that surface on the top of my soup. The soup has been cooking for a while now, and the extra meat is already firm up. So therefore, I am freely able to stir up the soup a little bit and to bring up all the impurities and the bubbles so that I can freely remove it also. And you also see these magical transformations of the bitter melons. While it's cooking, it also absorbs the brownish soup into it. As you can see that I'm guarding this pot of bitter melon soup like a baby. I'm carrying it and taking care of it so that I can have these perfections of translucent soup look alike toward the end. So here I am cooking my soup. As you can see that I'm so diligently and ambitiously making this soup for real. I do stir occasionally this to allow my watermelons to cook evenly because I have a lot of soup bones on the bottom of the pot and it's not covering up to the top. I could have add more water to allow the watermelons to submerge, but why would I do that? If I do that, I would have to add more ingredients to it, so I will just leave it alone. And I will keep the soup covered, that way it'll cook quicker. So I'm looking at about another hour after I add the bitter melons to cook until it's tender or allow extra time to cook further. Guess what? The bitter melon soup is done and I sample it and it tastes incredible, though that I do modify it a little bit because some of the ingredients are not available here in the country. So I modify in a very delicious version. There's nothing different about it, save for I didn't have the Chinese fungus, which is okay. We can do without. I added other stuff to fulfill it. So it tastes pretty good. I sample it. I'm about to chop up in a bowl and serve my mom. Hopefully she will like it. And also today, I encourage that you will try out bitter melons, and I will search out the nutritional values of the bitter melons, and that way you understand the basic nutritional values that contain in bitter melons that will encourage you to add into your diet. In China and in Vietnam, they use this as tea. Yes, so it's not just a bitter vegetable. It's one of those vegetables that have a very nutritional values that is good for. And when I Google some more information, I can share with you. Hopefully that you enjoy. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go check out the soup that's already been boiling for the last hours, and to tenderize the stuffing and the bitter melons. And I know that the spare rib is already done because it's been cooking a while. Yeah, let's go check out the pot. I am so happy that my soup turned out so well. The combinations of bitter watermelons and the translucent soup here, it turned out so complementarily alike. The oxidation process and the infusing with the soup and the ingredients that allow the bitter melons to reduce its bitterness and make this soup a very, very palatable bowl of meal today. I sampled the soup, and the pork spare is so done that it actually fall off the bones. And I will show you how beautiful this piece of meat fillings are. Once I pierce it, you will also vividly see the translucent of the cellophane noodles, making look magnificently beautiful. Since my mom is a small eater, this one piece of meat will be just perfect for her. I'm serving this soup traditionally with rice. As some of you may know that rice is Asian staple food. Therefore, we have tendency to serve everything with rice, even hot dog, for example. I'm not incriminating myself nor my Asian people, but that is the fact. And just because the hot dog bun is made out of rice, wheat, or other flours, it doesn't mean that we cannot eat the hot dog with rice, right? Common sense. And I respect every aspect of food, and don't get me wrong, I eat hot dog with buns also. Do you know what my mom would say to me if I'm serving this bowl of bitter melon soup with bread or bun? She would say, Vanna, are you losing your mind? She probably tried to call my sibling in California and tell them that she want to move back because I'm not giving her rice. And this is not a joke. You know, being born in different regions of the earth, I learned so much is that food are food. Have respect for all kind of food. All right, you have enough tales from Vanna Tales. Let's see about the soup. Now that I have my soup in the bowl, I cut it up in a service size. I embellish it with minced green scallions and top it with cracked black peppers. Then transforming this ordinary bowl of soup into a authentic, amazing, sophisticated looking bowl of soup. Those have been following for a while, they know that I'm crazy about making food looking pretty. It's complacency and satisfying for me. So it's done. I will serve my mom, and hopefully that she will like it because she's accustomed to this type of cooking also, and it's passed down to our family and down to me. And I modify it a little bit because I like my own versions. I also like the traditional versions, which is the ingredients is not available here in the country, so I can't be so authentic and be original about everything. But I did my best to produce something similar to, with a little modification. It tastes unique and delicious. And yeah, I invited you to try it out. I'm gonna sample I'm gonna have my bitter melon soup today. No. It tastes awesome. Can't really tell whether it's bitter or not because it's so blending in all the ingredients and herbs and spices in there, so it helped neutralize the bitterness in the bitter melons. The vegetable is so tender. Should try this at home.